On June 23, 2026, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea commissioned a heavily armed 5,000-ton guided missile destroyer into active service. The Choe Hyun is the largest and most technologically sophisticated surface combatant ever constructed by Pyongyang. Presiding over the ceremony at the Nampo shipyard, Chairman Kim Jong-un ordered the Navy to assume a new historic mission, a direct, state-mandated expansion of North Korea's military posture. For 70 years, the Korean People's Army Navy operated strictly as a green-water coastal defense force. Their maritime strategy relied on asymmetric, localized swarm tactics using small missile boats and aging diesel-electric Romeo-class submarines confined to the immediate littorals of the peninsula. A 5,000-ton destroyer operates on entirely different physical and strategic parameters. It provides the endurance and scale required for blue water power projection, allowing North Korea to actively contest maritime boundaries and sustain operations thousands of miles out into the broader Western Pacific. As this map demonstrates, outfitting a long-range vessel with an 88-cell vertical launch system engineered for nuclear payload delivery completely upends regional security. The static, predictable radii of terrestrial launch silos are replaced by an unpredictable mobile threat capable of initiating a multi-axis nuclear strike from the open ocean. While the existence of the Choe Hyon severely compromises the integrated air and missile defense architecture of the Indo-Pacific, a forensic analysis of its construction reveals severe industrial fragilities and points directly to a massive underlying reliance on Russian technological transfers. By migrating a portion of its nuclear delivery systems to the sea, North Korea ensures its deterrence is no longer strictly tethered to the vulnerabilities of its own landmass. Adversaries can no longer watch a fixed geographic coordinate. They have to search a constantly shifting 360-degree maritime theater. To understand the engineering leap here, look at this vector comparison. At 145 meters in length, the Choe Hyun is more than triple the displacement of North Korea's previous largest warship, the 1,500-ton Omnak-class corvette. The whole design actively abandons the radar-reflecting clutter typical of Cold War-era Soviet vessels. Instead, it utilizes stealth-optimized superstructures, enclosed mooring decks, and concealed weapon mounts to drastically minimize its radar cross-section. But the ship did not emerge fully formed. During its initial trials following an April 2025 launch, the vessel lacked independent marine propulsion and had to be towed. Observers also noted distinct, raw structural gaps running along the aft hull. This 3D wireframe reveals the initial layout: 10 oversized aft cells flanked by structural gaps. An October refit closed these gaps, adjusting the VLS to 68 cells. By March 2026, the ship finalized a dense 88-cell capacity. Modernizing structural profiles, swapping complex VLS modules, and troubleshooting marine propulsion within a 13-month window is highly anomalous. It strongly indicates North Korean shipyards bypassed years of iterative testing by relying heavily on imported external engineering blueprints. The kinetic density of this layout is extreme. Of those 88 VLS cells, independent analysts assess that at least 20 feature oversized diameters, explicitly engineered to house nuclear-tipped ballistic missiles and heavy land attack cruise missiles. This satellite image of the Namco boat basin confirms Pyongyang possesses the cold launch engineering required. Previous submarine-launched ballistic missile tests from this submersible barge validated the complex ejection mechanisms necessary for VLS safety. Historically, North Korean warships relied on mechanically scanned, rotating radar antennas, which are highly susceptible to jamming and suffer from slow refresh rates. The Choe Hyun completely discards these for fixed-face, phased-array radar panels integrated directly into the superstructure, allowing it to track hundreds of incoming threats simultaneously. These phased-array primary sensors are networked with a comprehensive electronic warfare suite. For the first time, a North Korean vessel possesses the organic capability to passively detect enemy radar emissions and actively jam adversary targeting systems. The origin of this technology is highly visible. Naval analysts found a direct match between the Choe Hyun and Russia's Project 11356 Admiral Grigorovich-class frigates. The hydrodynamic shaping of the bow and stern suggests direct utilization of Russian computer-aided design files. Furthermore, the ship's close-in weapon systems directly mimic the Russian Pantsir ME point defense platform, implying the physical transfer of advanced metallurgical and electronic components. Following the September 2023 summit, North Korea began transferring millions of rounds of artillery shells to Russia. Given the 13-month construction window and the sudden appearance of advanced sensors, intelligence assessments suggest this naval technology is likely the reciprocal payment for North Korean munitions. The maturation of the Russia-DPRK defense axis proves that global sanctions have not starved Pyongyang into submission. Instead, they have forced North Korea into a highly integrated anti-Western supply chain that actively fills its aerospace and naval deficits. The existing Indo-Pacific missile defense architecture, which relies on land-based systems like THAAD and Patriot batteries, is optimized almost entirely to track high-altitude ballistic trajectories originating from terrestrial launch sites in the north. A mobile sea-based platform bypasses this geographic targeting calculus. A destroyer navigating the Sea of Japan can launch a depressed trajectory missile, compressing the early warning timeline to mere minutes and introducing entirely unpredictable attack vectors. This problem is compounded by strategic cruise missiles. By utilizing terrain masking and flying just feet above the ocean surface, these weapons possess minimal radar cross-sections that slip beneath the horizon of high-altitude defense networks. In direct response to this threat, the Republic of Korea has rapidly accelerated its own next-generation modernization efforts, centering on the KDDX stealth destroyer program. To counter North Korean submarines and surface combatants, the KDDX utilizes an integrated electric propulsion system. By drastically lowering the acoustic signature of the ship's engines, the ROK Navy significantly increases its own anti-submarine warfare lethality. South Korean defense planners are deliberately shifting toward a doctrine of force density. Rather than relying on a few massive, expensive Aegis destroyers, they are deploying a larger fleet of highly survivable stealth combatants to maintain overlapping, persistent coverage across the peninsula. The presence of the Choe Hyon effectively forces the United States and South Korea to stretch their resources. They must divert immense financial and intelligence capital away from localized land-based deterrence to maintain continuous 360-degree tracking across the open ocean. During the commissioning, Kim Jong-un laid out a sweeping 5-year political mandate. The domestic shipbuilding sector must construct 2 major surface combatants annually, culminating in a future class of 10,000-ton strategic cruisers. Moving from a 5,000-ton destroyer to a 10,000-ton cruiser represents a massive technical escalation. It demands a geometric increase in electrical generation to power larger phased array radars and the fabrication of specialized propulsion plants capable of moving 10,000 tons of steel at combat speeds. To meet these quotas, satellite imagery confirms massive, rapid infrastructure expansions at the Nampo shipyard, including a 170-meter covered construction hall designed to shield the assembly of subsequent destroyers from overhead reconnaissance. Simultaneously, this overhead view of the Chongjin shipyard on the northeast coast reveals over 6 acres of newly reclaimed land. A massive new construction hall and dedicated heavy rail tracks have been laid down specifically to transport completed hull blocks. But expanding physical infrastructure does not solve North Korea's severe macroeconomic constraints. Constructing a modern naval fleet demands immense allocations of specialized naval metallurgy and sensitive microelectronics, components that must be procured illicitly at an astronomical premium. Pouring concrete for larger dry docks is the easy part. Building and fielding a 10,000-ton cruiser is a massive economic burden that will inevitably siphon limited logistical, air defense, and anti-submarine resources away from the rest of the military just to ensure its survival. The underlying vulnerability of this highly accelerated timeline was publicly exposed during the catastrophic launch of the Choe Hyon sister ship, the Kang-Kan. During its May 2025 launch ceremony on the slipway, the vessel suffered a severe mechanical failure. Suddenly, the stern slipped rapidly into the water, while the heavy bow remained firmly lodged on the shore. Looking at the physics of a slipway launch here, this sudden shift in the center of gravity generated a massive rotational force, completely capsizing the 5,000-ton vessel and severely compromising its internal electronics with salt water. The disaster triggered an immediate political purge. Labeling the incident a criminal act of unscientific empiricism, Kim Jong-un ordered the detention and punishment of the shipyard's chief engineer and deputy manager. This incident provides a critical intelligence data point. It proves that aggressive political decrees and arbitrary anniversaries cannot override the rigorous quality control and immutable physics demanded by modern naval architecture. North Korea has successfully weaponized foreign technology to field a highly lethal sea-based nuclear deterrent. But building a sustainable blue water fleet remains a logistical improbability unless Pyongyang maintains the permanent, enduring patronage of the Russian Federation.